Hey everybody, welcome back to the next episode of the Legacy Liftoff podcast by Drone Adair. I'm your host, Cody Retlick, and today I'm joined by Dylan Gorman, the founder of Pilot Byte. Dylan, I really appreciate you being on today. Thanks for joining us.
No, I appreciate you carving out some time in your schedule to have me on today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure. I've followed your stuff for a while now, and I know you've kind of been doing a lot of different things in the industry, and I want to get into all of it. But if you've listened to the podcast before, I always like starting kind of in the beginning, right? Even before you started into drones, what you were doing. I believe in the beginning you were a web developer, right? And in that way, or something along those lines, and so from your point of view, right, just tell us kind of your story of how you originally got into the industry or what you were doing prior that you kind of had that aha moment of, all right, I want to start looking into drones or being a part of this industry.
Man, yeah. So what's really funny, I tell people this story kind of all the time, but my history goes way back further than actually flying drones. I know I tell people, hey, I've been in the drone industry for 10 years, and that is true. I've been flying drones ever since I was yay tall. But really, my interest into getting into the industry was in the production industry. So I was always running around with cameras, whether it's my iPhone or a Canon camera, making short films with my buddies back in middle and high school. And it wasn't until I convinced my father to get me a drone and a higher end DSLR camera to do real estate photography, because my best friend just so happened to, his dad was a real estate broker. So obviously every single real estate broker, and I mean, I'm sure you know how this story goes. You go and shoot some photos for them, you get paid 75 bucks, 150 bucks for every single house that you do. And that was essentially the start of me getting into drones. This is way before Part 107 existed. So there really was, it was basically still the Wild West at that point. But me being a 13-year-old, 12, 13-year-olds, really playing with tools and fun toys, I ended up actually using that to more so make the films and fun videos that I love to do. So it was really never in a commercial capacity. It was always just for fun, always just shooting to create just fun content, as we would call that nowadays. And fast forward about, 3-4 years, I had some opportunities to leverage a lot of my expertise in that time using drones as a cinematography tool to shoot platinum level artists in the hip hop industry down in Miami, up in Detroit, out in Atlanta, using it really on high end productions as a photographer, a videographer. And that was really my start into the industry on the production side, well before I got into the commercial side, using it for mapping and surveying and inspections. But it was also around that time when I met my future business partner, when I ended up starting a drone service provider business, where he came to me. He said, hey, I know we've hired you for some projects before to do some cinematography stuff, but my best friend, his dad, following in the same theme of real estate, they were on the commercial side of the real estate. So they were a real estate developer, and they were developing warehouses, last mile distribution centers, grocery stores, little shopping centers. And he came to me. He was always kind of their go-to drone guy, but his stuff was never really that high level. They wanted to look for something to take it to that next level, to get a different perspective on, one, not only viewing these properties, but also understanding the properties a little bit better. This is where around the time I started seeing YouTube videos pop up about, hey, you can use your drones to make 3D models, 2D maps. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, but never really paid attention to it. But that was just something that I kind of had in the back of my mind. When he came to me with that opportunity, I said, okay, let me go and present to them and these people in person. So basically got this entire company in front of their boardroom and said, hey, I want to be able to present this stuff to you guys in a different way. And the way that I want to do that is by doing a 3D scan. Have you guys ever done a 3D scan of your properties before? And they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I mean, we're talking about people that are in their 60s and 70s, right? Back when kind of CAD first came out, they were like, whoa, their minds were blown at that point. So it was really cool. That same day, I went and got a trial of Drone Deploy. did a few scans of my house just to make sure that I got everything down. And then that next day I went out and did an entire scan of the development site. It was just, there's 2 warehouses that they were building. It was only like, I think 30 minutes from my house. So it was really easy to get to. Went and did that myself, and then came into their office the following day and presented them the demo, the trial account of Drone Deploy that I had for the property that they scanned. And literally every single person in that room, their jaws were on the floor. They're like, what am I looking at? This is insane. And that's when I started seeing some light bulbs go off for people, because they're telling me, hey, go zoom in there. Hey, what's the measurement of this? Hey, what's the distance from this part of the parking lot to the other side? And that's when the light bulb started going off for them. And that's when I started seeing the true potential of what mapping progress updates could do for the industry, more so on the development side of the commercial real estate side of it. And that was really when that first moment of when my buddy and I looked at each other, like, okay, I think we're on to something. And that's when we started our first drone business called Byte. Really our first true business, because at that point I had 2 other service businesses where I said, hey, throw me everything. I'm kind of a yes man. And we all know how that goes, is, jack of all trades, master of none. But that's when I focused with Byte to just be I niched down. I wanted to focus specifically on the mapping and progress updates for the commercial real estate industry. So fast forward us doing that for about a year and a half, we did all kinds of projects all over the state of Florida. We even went into some other states up in Ohio, North Carolina, Georgia, doing projects, not just for this company, but also some of the other companies that they also worked with, because we did everything word of mouth. We never spent a single dollar on advertising. It was all, again, just word of mouth and just pure brute force. We were just going from job site to the next job site to the next job site, uploading on the road and making sure that we're getting deliverables to our clients in a timely manner. Around that time, about a year and a half in, we were quickly approaching towards the end of 2019. So we know what's right around the corner there. We got approached by the software company, and the software company is called ID Plans. And basically what they do in a very simplistic way is they create an entire blueprint of these commercial real estate properties. So again, last mile distribution centers, big warehouses, shopping centers, to really give the client, and the client being a real estate investment trust, these REITs, a better holistic understanding of the properties, all the way from what their site looks like on the big picture scale, say like that 10,000 foot perspective, all the way down to serial numbers of HVAC units, the gas pumps or the gas lines, the water meters, every single thing on these properties, and digitize it. But what they were missing is they were still using Google Satellite to visualize these properties. They didn't have a full understanding of it. And that's where they came in, or where we came in, and they offered us to go out and do a few samples on some of their properties, which we did. It just so happened to be actually a lot of crossover with some of the existing clients that we had, where we created a very simplistic 2D map, an orthomosaic, gave it to them. They embedded it into their platform. We also did a few 360 images up in the sky with a drone, a few orbit videos, and a few other photos, say our cardinal shots of these sites, embedded it into their platform. And again, that was another light bulb moment for them, and their clients loved it. Right when that happened, they offered us a $160,000 contract to go out and complete it. It's like 120 properties out in the Northeast. So huge project ahead of us. Halfway through that project, they offered to buy us out. I ended up joining forces with ID Plans and built out their entire drone program, which is where kind of the start of my YouTube channel happened, where I really wanted to show people, hey, there's things that you can actually do with your drones that's more than just taking pretty photos and pretty videos. You can use it for real world use cases, such as understanding the progress on these construction sites, or using it as an inspection tool on these massive properties. And ID Plans, they have managed thousands, hundreds of thousands of properties all across the US and building out these data sets for their clients. So it's a very unique opportunity for me to come in and build that entire program. So I was there for almost 2 years, and we averaged about 2,500 properties a year. We're looking at 150 to 200 properties a week that we were mapping out from a team of about 100 contract pilots all throughout the US, up in Alaska, down in Puerto Rico. And I was at the forefront of it. I was building out all of the procedures, the statement of work, everything for our pilots, but also creating these deliverables for our clients too. And part of that entire process made me realize that most of these contract pilots, although everyone goes out and gets a Part 107, aren't really commercial pilots. They don't fully understand the intricacies and the technical aspects of how these things work together, from understanding the resolution of GSD of these maps to physical accuracy and understanding ground control points and RTK and PPK. They didn't understand any of that stuff at all. So that's when I started building out some training material and building out these very basic courses for internal use to help teach our pilots actually how to do the proper work. Because a lot of the times they were messing it up because, again, they just got their Part 107. They had no idea how these tools worked. So fast forward again, at the end of 2022, I left ID plans and really dove 100% into Pilot Byte, which this is what I run now. So Pilot Byte is all about providing technical education to the industry. It goes beyond just getting your Part 107. It's really understanding how to use the tools of the trade, because at the end of the day, being a drone service provider is a trade job. You're providing a service to a client, whether that's a very simple inspection with taking some photos and videos, all the way up to creating full 3D models, 2D maps for surveyors, engineers, architects, right? There's all kinds of industries that's using this technology. And so I wanted to hone in all of this knowledge that I had to soak up over the last 5 years of doing this professionally and build something that's intuitive and easy to understand and easy to grasp, because I had spent well over $100,000 trying to learn all this stuff. Most people don't have those kinds of funds to learn all of it. So I've been very blessed with the opportunities that came my way, but also to really take advantage of it and now be able to provide this education into the industry, which there's far and few between these resources out there. Again, I went to YouTube University. I don't have a college degree. There's really no place to learn all of this in one holistic view. So that's kind of the long-winded story of where I started to where I am now, and what I'm looking to do into the industry is continue to provide more education, more opportunities for people to learn, again, the tools of the trade, but also where this industry is going, because it's such a fast-paced industry, as you know.
Yeah, no doubt. And I appreciate that. That's a good story. There's a lot to unpack there too, because, a lot of fast forwards that I think in any realm, right, of your career, whatever industry you're in, you have those moments throughout that are like moving you to the next thing or allowing you to pivot, whether that's professionally, personally, taking your education to a higher level, but then also being able to teach it now to students and to other people. And your YouTube channel, you've done very well at growing that since you kind of full-time went into that as well. Let's just take a step back. I kind of want to talk a little bit through some of those things, some of those transitions in in your career in the industry, I would say, because I also came from the production side of the world first, flying for more production level stuff. Where do you think you were, or what were you first flying when you were doing those cinematography for like the artists? And what drones were you flying back then? Because you said it was like 2015, 2016, was that correct? Or
roughly around that time. Yeah, so I think it was right around the time Mavic 2 Pro came out. I was using that and then sold that and bought an Inspire 1, used that for a bit, and then switched over to a Phantom 4 Pro V2. Or no, I don't think the V2 was out at that time. So a bunch of different tools. Basically, all they cared about is having 4K capability on a camera, because that was the biggest selling point, is if you had 4K, then you're hired. So.
Right. Yeah. And that is the first time is like, all right, this is just a mandatory thing, right? You needed to be able to do it. And that's awesome though, because I think that's kind of an initial those first type of drones where it was like, all right, these are
well, even way before that, I was tinkering with the Phantom 1 and the Phantom 2 and, basically getting the ZenMuse Z3 gimbal with the Hero 3 Plus Black on there. I crashed that a few times.
Nice.
But started back then doing that.
Yeah, I mean, and you didn't know where you were flying, you didn't know your angles, you didn't know if you were capturing the right thing. check the footage when you come down, right? GoPro didn't even have an app at that time, I don't think, where you could like see the GoPro live, which I guess if they did back then, maybe their drones would have been a little bit more successful as
Yep.
well. But who knows, right? I mean, that's nor here nor there, but have advanced quite since then. When you made that transition into mapping, because I think that's a big thing nowadays that I tell every pilot that is like, hey, I don't know what side of the industry to get into or where the most opportunity is, where's the less friction for other entrants or people around me, that there might be so many pilots out there already doing photography for real estate or videography for real estate and things like that. And the production side of things is tough to get into now. You
It
have to
is.
know a lot of people, and you have to have the experience with cameras. It's like if you don't know camera settings or you don't know, your actual knowledge behind cinematography, it's not something you can just pick up and be like, "Hey, I'm gonna fly, these cinema cameras on some of these larger rigs," or it's
Good
just
luck.
not. It's right, and to deal with production, as you know, right? I mean, having a
That's a nightmare
full
in itself. Just being a commercial drone pilot and operating by yourself is a challenge in itself. And then working with a team of people that are breathing down your neck adds an entire other level of difficulty that most people, I hope they never have to experience, but it's not easy. They make it look easy,
Yeah.
but it's not easy. And if you can't operate underneath those intense levels of stress, good luck.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like, I mean, I've been on some that it's all right, you got 30 minutes. Here you go. Here's your shot. You better nail it. Right. Or you wait all day long for that one shot and you need to nail that shot in a couple tries, maybe if you even get a couple tries. Right. So you have to really be on point for that type of stuff. So it's a whole nother ball game for sure. But going back, that's kind of where I always direct people is like if you want to learn a new skill and you want to actually put time and effort into educating yourself on a new skill, mapping and surveying is a huge opportunity, right? There's so much potential out there
Yeah.
for that. So I think, being that I do present that as an option to look into or to educate yourself on, I'd like to dive more into that because I know that's something you definitely focus on a lot with Pilot Byte, is photogrammetry, mapping, surveying, even thermal imaging. I know you have a course on that now as well. So um, as you've kind of like started in the beginning to now, there's so many tools out there, right? I think there's I mean, I could, name 5 to 6 software platforms that do a lot of the same things these days. Some of them are more advanced than others. Some of them also are a lot more expensive than others.
Right.
If you were to give someone advice that is like, hey, I've decided now that I want to be in the mapping world. I want to be able to, start my photogrammetry and learn maps and understand that a little bit more. One, where would you suggest they start other than educating themselves, right? We know that that's obviously a big
Right.
part of this, but like, what type of drone should I get? What type of knowledge and experience should I go out and actually get? Our ground control points are important, but for what level, right? Is like
Right.
basic level versus advanced. Where would you suggest someone kind of first starts if they're looking into really diving into the mapping side of the drone industry?
Well, I would first say, there's a few components to it. First and foremost is doing some due diligence. That's probably the most important piece that I think most people forget. They see, oh, I can go and spend $2,000-3,000 on a drone, and this guy's making $2,000 a week, or a few $100 on this project. But that's besides the point. Really, you have to do your market research, because the projects that exist in Tampa, Florida, for where I'm based out of, is completely different than what exists out in Dallas, Fort Worth, or in Los Angeles, or out in Minnesota, right? So there's multiple different layers to it, because what works in one region does not work in another region. It's supply and demand is first and foremost, but also the understanding of how these tools and resources operate together, right? There's a lot of engineering and survey firms that are now completely embracing drone technology, where you've got people out in the middle of nowhere that are like, I'm just going to use my measuring tape because that is the most effective tool for that. So, and I'm not trying to discourage it all. I'm being honest. I'm being truthful here. You really have to do your due diligence and understand what kind of businesses are leveraging these tools and to what capacity are they leveraging these tools. And that may be even as simple as looking at your potential competitors in that same space. I always look at what my competitors are doing in Tampa, Florida, and seeing what services that they're providing, right? Then I use that as the model that I want to build towards or surpass them at. But before you can even get into the industry, you have to understand what currently exists and what the market is like. Obviously, the second piece is getting educated. That's probably the cheapest thing that I would suggest people do, because the cost of getting educated, whether you spend $500, $1,000, $2,000 on understanding how these tools work, may actually be the piece that discourages you from actually getting into the industry. And now you've saved yourself $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 from dumping money into equipment that you probably didn't even need, or maybe you don't even want to get into, right? So I would much rather right now spend, let's say, $800 on the course that I offer to teach all of this stuff, which teaches you all of the pieces of hardware that you need, the software that you need, and actually taking you step by step and operating everything so that you can be an effective service provider with drone mapping and photogrammetry. I would much rather invest into that and know, okay, I don't want to spend $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 on a piece of hardware and then spend the $2,000 a year on software. That's not for me, right? I'd rather lose out on $800 than lose out on thousands of dollars.
Right.
And then, the third and most important part is relationship building. That's the hugest piece of the puzzle, right? That's where most businesses succeed and strive. And that's the one component that I take the most importance on. I always seek building good, strong relationships and purposeful relationships too, right? Your best friend is not always going to be your best business partner, but someone who sees on the same level as you and is on the same page as you within the industry will be a good business partner or a good business relationship. So those are kind of the three components that I look at: is doing your due diligence and understanding what the market looks like and what opportunities exist, getting your education, and relationship building. Everything else comes from trial and error and actually not going through the motions, but actually doing it, actually going out into the field and doing it. And there's a lot of resources that exist out there. There's a lot of drone provider networks. I call them DPNs that exist out there, such as Fly Guys. They're not called the Connexicor. Droners.io doesn't exist anymore.
No.
But there's a few different drone provider networks that exist out there for you to dip your toes and get a sense of what exists in the market. And then that's where you can start building your skill sets and becoming an effective service provider in the industry. Because this stuff doesn't happen overnight. Like I said, I've been in the industry for 10 years. I've been doing drone photogrammetry mapping for 5+ years now. But I'm still learning. I'm still building my relationships out there, because I'm not sitting here, sitting in the chair like this, waiting for a phone call to come through. You have to put yourself out there to actually get the jobs, but also, the experience comes with it too.
Yeah, for sure. Let's dive into that last one, because as you mentioned, it's the most important that you believe. And I also believe that it's the most important. I mean, I've said it before. I've said it multiple times. I'll say it again, is collaboration over competition in a lot of ways.
Yep.
But it's always a good saying out there. It's not what you do or who you know, but it's what you do for who you know, right? And I truly believe that
Absolutely.
that is very important, because being able to connect with someone really on a personal level, but also understanding their business and where they're at, just because they have a drone pilot or a drone team internally, or that they're contracting someone out for it, doesn't mean that, I'm just not going to contact them, or I'm not going to reach out to them or learn. They're always looking for other opportunities, for other skill sets and knowledge in different areas. So it's very important to just put yourself out there, because at any time someone could leave, someone could transition into a new career, they could move, they could completely get out of it, and then you're there and you were in front of them, or you at least built that relationship.
Yep.
So you might be that person that they contact. So myself, coming from a sales background before I started Midwest Aerial Productions and then now Drone Adair, I was very, very heavily into cold calling. Like the industry that I worked in beforehand was like, we were knocking on 300 to 500 doors, literally physically in person a month, having to put ourselves out there. That's probably transitioned a little bit now since COVID happened and, you know, everybody's online, or not a whole lot of people are in the office even still. I would say it's moving back towards that, but it's still a lot of people working from home. So where do you kind of start now, when you look at building new relationships with people in your area? Where do you start to kind of reach out to them? Is it LinkedIn? Do you, you know, research on their website to find out if they have a drone program or if they're using drones? What's kind of your tips and tricks on that area of like, hey, I'm wanted to get into this side of the industry. How do I start building these relationships?
There's really two kinds of relationships that I go after in the industry. Obviously, my focus on relationships is a little bit different than a service provider, because I don't really provide many services anymore. I do a lot of education. But let's just say, for the sake of this conversation, I was a service provider and I'm looking to build new relationships in the industry. There's two components. You have your local, right, your competitors, and then you also have everybody else that's online, the regional, the people that are in different states. Part of actually building relationship is also learning more about the industry too. As
For sure.
big as this industry may seem, it's tiny. Like everybody can fit in one conference room practically, is how big the industry is, and everybody knows everything. And to your point, right, somebody may leave, and because you have established that relationship, you may be that next person up on the totem pole to go and provide whatever service they're looking for you to provide, or be that next guy online to actually go and do work within the industry. I can't tell you how many offers I've gotten over the last few years for me to leave some of the companies that I was at to go and join another company to go run their programs or to go do some service work for somebody else. Because again, everybody knows everybody in this industry. And part of that is understanding people that are nearby you, developing those in-person relationships, taking them out to go get a coffee or just learn more about their operation, or even just say, hey, if you guys ever need me, I'm here. I'm willing to learn. I don't have to get a big paycheck. I just want to learn. And as long as you compensate me for my time, I'm happy. Because your first 3 to 6 to even 8 months within the industry, when you first start, it's a lot of just, paying the bills that you have and surviving on what you have to get past it. Because for the first 2 years that I worked in the drone industry, I didn't pay myself. I basically paid all of my bills and I had no leisure funds after the fact. But those are some of the sacrifices that I made to get me to the position I am today. To go into that second point of people online, I have a lot of fantastic online relationships with people all across the industry, from surveyors to engineers to other drone pilots to hardware companies to software companies, where there's no stupid questions. You just need to continuously ask all of the questions in order to fill your knowledge bank within the industry. And those are the different ways that you can build out these relationships. And I guess kind of a bonus is to go to these events, right? There's two different community building aspects that you can do, is either to go to a commercial UV expo or some other similar drone program, or not drone program, but drone conference, whether they're a big national one or just a local regional one. The second part is joining online forums. I know there's several big drone Facebook groups, such as commercial UV mapping, commercial drone pilots, LiDAR mapping and surveying. Like there's all kinds of different drone focused online Facebook groups. There's some Discord groups. There's LinkedIn groups. There's groups all over the place. And those are some of the best places to find some of the most knowledgeable people as well. And some also ways to get other opportunities to work within the industry. But again, it all goes back to relationship building, whether you do it in person or virtually. It's a key component to being successful within the industry, because without it, you're just a one-man band. And I can't tell you how many one-man bands I know that are successful, because most of them aren't, and most of them cease to exist nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love all that. I think that's a important aspect of it for sure. And I know you're not fully on the sales side, and that it's different if you're not that DSP anymore, DPM, in some ways. But let's transition more into that education sector then, because that's what you're all about now, right? In a lot of different ways with your YouTube channel and your courses with Pilot Byte. You mentioned you were kind of starting your YouTube channel back in, was it 2019? Is that kind of right when you started it, or 2020? Around there?
Yep, I hear you now. Yeah, so I started my YouTube channel, I think in like June of 2021. I mean, I've had this YouTube channel for a long time. I posted more like cinematography stuff and whatnot, but quickly transitioned into doing more of the commercial drone side. My first ever video was a comparison of the DJI Mini 2 to the Inspire 2, because the Inspire 2 was just a drone that I was using as a workhorse for mapping. And then my second video, which is my highest viewed video to date, has over 1 million views. And that was talking about, it was actually a component of that $160,000 contract that I got, where in those first 6 months, I went out and we made over $93,000 very quickly. Talked a lot about using Drone Deploy and what kind of service we were providing. I mean, I basically opened the book and showed people, hey, this is how I did it, and this was the value that I provided to my client. That, truthfully, that video actually didn't take off until about 6 months later. Out of nowhere, it just started skyrocketing in the views. I got like 100,000 views very quickly, and then took a small dip. And then again, out of nowhere, around almost exactly like 9 months later from when I posted that video, in May of 2022, I got 300,000 views in like a week, or in like 4 weeks. It was crazy. But also at the same time, I was posting some other videos, doing some more educational content, teaching people as simple as using the DJI Mini 2 to do and create a map, teaching some different skill sets and whatnot. And it was then when people started asking, hey, can you really teach me everything about this? Like, I want to know more about what you're doing. What is photogrammetry? What are the components of it? Which is when I went to the drawing board. I actually had purchased the Pilot Byte domain and logos and everything else way before I actually went live with it. And I was like, okay, let me put something together. So I spent basically the last 3 months of 2022 building out my first course. And then I launched it the week of Christmas in 2022, going into 2023. And that was the first offering that I really had, is to help teach people. Now, it was a very short course. It was only like 2 to 3 hours long, teaching the very basics of drone mapping and photogrammetry, to the point where now, at the time of recording this podcast here, about a week ago, I fully updated everything and spent the last 4 months for version 3 of my photogrammetry and mapping course, where now it has over 18 hours of video content, over 200 different lessons, 22 different modules, a capstone project, all kinds of stuff built into it now that really teaches you everything from understanding what photogrammetry and mapping is, to learning about the different tools, because there's more than just drones that you need in order to create effective maps and models, all the way to the field tools, to understanding the different software that exists out there, from Drone Deploy to UGCS to reality capture. Like, I've got a ton of different tools that I cover in there. So then actually quizzing you and asking you to create a map and model, really setting you up for success within the industry, which is what I want to do. I really want to help people understand how to use all these tools, because it gets very confusing very fast with, oh my God, I see this Drone Deploy subscription that's $7,000 a year, and this M350 that's going to cost me $25,000. Like, where do I start? And people are telling me, oh, DJI is going to get banned. What do I do? Right? There's all of these confusing and information that exists out there. And I want to basically clear the fog and make it a crystal clear path for people to understand really how to provide the technical services that exist in the industry.
Yeah, that's great. I have watched that YouTube video as well. That you were talking about. You do a good job of, you're on site. You're showing them kind of the process right on your iPad. I believe you were flying the Inspire 2 at the time.
Yep.
In Drone Deploy, that it's an automated mission, right? You're going through and showing them the model and the map and how customers can access it and see the 2D and the 3D models, and being able to understand that these projects are pretty easy at the end of the day,
Yeah.
once you know what you're doing and how to
Yeah.
actually get the data and set it up and understand what you actually need to do from beginning pre-planning stages to then post, because the actual flying part is in a lot of ways now is some of the easiest in some ways too. So if you haven't
Yeah.
seen that video, check it out. We'll put all of your YouTube link in the show notes and everything like that, as well as your website for your courses. But that I think as a whole, right? When people look at, you have 18 hours of content, you have these quizzes, you have these maps. It's like some people might get overwhelmed, but at the end of the day, they shouldn't, because if you spend 18 hours learning something from head to toe, from the beginning to the end of, and obviously you don't have every single component that you could ever learn in there, but you have a lot of information packed into 18 hours. People are paying, tens of thousands of dollars a year to go to school to learn new applications or to get into a new industry. So when you look at these online courses that you've provided and others, it really is a great investment to first really get yourself acclimated to a lot of that information. So, it's something that nowadays too is ever growing, but you're, like you said, you're on your version 3, so you've evolved it and you're changing it and updating it to the times, because you kind of got to constantly keep up with the technology. I always say that, for us, technology is so far advanced in the industry, right?
Yep.
Ahead of regulations, but um, you got to keep up with it and be able to use the tools that you have to ultimately provide your customers with a great experience so they keep coming back, right? And you
Absolutely.
also, I mean, you have a lot of good free resources out there as well. I mean, and your YouTube page has a ton of information, of great content that people at least can get a little bit of a snapshot of what might be in that course. Um, so,
Oh,
it,
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah.
no, and I'm constantly looking to provide more free resources out in the industry. I've got a new free course all about ground control points coming out probably in like a month or so. It's a little snippet from my full online course. I already have a free course on understanding how to use RTK for mapping. In addition to that, again, I've been away for 4 months working so hard on rebuilding this online course. It's fully filmed from scratch again. So over 200 videos that I had to film. So it's a huge course. But on top of that, now that I've kind of gotten past the rebuilding portion of this, I am now hiring new instructors in the industry. So I'm working with people in the LiDAR field, in the thermal field, in the inspection field for, let's say, solar panels, for telecommunication, for power lines and distribution. I've got about 7 to 8 new courses that I'm developing over the next year for the different niches that exist in the industry, working with real industry experts. I'm not asking ChatGPT, hey, how do I do a power line inspection? I'm actually working and we're bringing in experts, like veteran experts, people that have been in the industry for 4, 5, 6 years that have been doing this full time, 4 to 10 hours a day, every single day for the last few years, bringing them in and building out an entire education course so that not only you yourself can learn how to do this, but also so that you can be effective for other companies that are looking to bring on experts, or at least people that don't just have their feet wet, but can actually do it in a comprehensive manner, because that's something that lacks in this industry. Most people know how to hit the record button or hit the shutter button on the drone, but nobody really knows how to do these full inspections, these full mapping projects, understanding what this data can do to the full extent, which again is what I'm really focusing on. I want to be the hub of education within the industry. I know there's other platforms that exist out there that teach you how to get your Part 107 and some of the basics, but I want to bring in veterans. I want to bring in experts within the industry to really teach out all this stuff. So that is one of the biggest investments that I'm making this year, is to hire industry experts to build out these courses. And some of the new ones should be coming out in the next few months here. But that's one of the things that I am really excited about now that I get to kind of shift my focus and work with people, other people in the industry. Again, building that community, building those relationships to help you that's watching, or anybody else that is looking to get any other education, really the right tools, the right information. Because again, there's a lot of misinformation out there. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars learning how to do all this stuff, hundreds of hours perfecting the actual model and perfecting the actual expertise behind it, so that you yourself don't have to make those same mistakes that I did very early on, because that's probably a story for another day. Man, there's so many projects that I wish I could go back and redo. But again, those are all learning experiences.
Yeah, and that's where you got to take them, right? I mean, there's plenty. If anybody who's been in the industry for a while, you have to take those with a.
You can't be afraid to fail. I always look at them as a learning opportunities. I don't look at them as failures, because if you look at them as a failure, then that's a way to discourage yourself. You got to look at them as learning opportunities. Obviously, some of those learning opportunities are going to cost you a client or two, but that's just part of the process. That's part of being an entrepreneur. That's part of being a service provider, especially in a vastly, quickly evolving industry such as this. It's a very technical industry. There's a lot of technology involved with it. And it's constantly changing almost every single day. So you can't be afraid to try new things. You can't be afraid to fail at a task, because at the end of the day, you're going to learn a lot of things from it and improve them and provide a better service to your clients in the long run.
Yep. No doubt. Yeah, you always got to learn from that and understand, hey, how could I have done this better? Where did we go wrong? Also, ultimately knowing exactly how you can improve and figure out the best solution going forward, because that's just the way you can evolve yourself as well as your company and get into other industries. I think it's undersaid too, is like always asking clients, and this is something that in my past and continuously still doing is with our platform, is learning like, hey, what's good, what's bad, how can we improve, looking at understanding what the actual needs are, and if you hit the mark or if you miss the mark, and how you can fix that. Because listening to feedback, not only from your customers, your service providers, your other collaborators, whoever you're working with, or just other people in the industry, knowing that feedback is almost more important than actually doing the work, right? So it's really always an evolving and learning process, no doubt about that. Well, I'll definitely keep an eye out as you go forward and kind of develop new courses with these experts, because I think that's a great way to provide that credibility, to any students that go through your courses, but then also really showcase the true knowledge behind it, rather than just throwing stuff out there that's basic and not very informative, because at the end of the day, that's not necessarily the best avenue in a lot of ways. So Dylan, I guess anything else that you want to share? I know I always do ask kind of that future, but you already alluded to it a little bit. But in your mind, whether it's personally with Pilot Byte and kind of what more on your courses going forward, or just a drone industry as a whole, what kind of are you looking forward to, or maybe some projections for these next couple of years in the industry?
Well, for one, I think obviously the industry is at a hockey stick right now in terms of the growth, right? We're projected to hit almost $60 billion of an industry market by 2028, which is huge, which means there's a lot of opportunity and obviously more competition that's going to come into play. But I think if we all really focus on building those relationships and understanding how to provide the right service, whether again, you're a one-man band team or you're an organization, sticking to your guns and being able to really grow together as a community is really what's going to help drive the success within the industry. Because obviously, I know there's a lot of AI and machine learning stuff coming out, which can be very helpful, but can also hurt. As long as we look at it in a positive light and leverage it for our own use cases. Obviously, there's a lot more automation coming to the industry. So most people are like, oh, where's my job going to go? Well, it's still going to be there, just in a different capacity. You just have to be looking for that and looking for those opportunities within the industry. But I mean, I think the drone industry is here to stay for the long term. Again, I know it's going to evolve. There's going to be, again, more automation, more drone in a box solutions, but there's still going to be a lot of stuff that us human beings have to be behind the sticks for. That's not going away anytime soon. I really don't believe it. No matter how much fear mongering there is from companies and AI companies building these things, we're still going to be at the front line for a lot of these use cases and scenarios. And again, picking a niche and really getting involved with that niche is what's going to help excel you the quickest within the industry. But it's also going to make you an expert of that and understand the development path that needs to be had in order to make those industries succeed even further. So again, there's a lot of new stuff coming out every single day. There's new use cases of drones. I mean, I have conversations a few times a week of people using drones at different capacities. I'm like, damn, that's cool, but not my cup of tea, but that's really cool that you're doing that. So there's plenty of opportunity that exists out there. And Cody, as a thank you for anybody that's listening, I want to give a $100 discount for the course if you just use Add Air, where at the time of this going out, it's $200 off. But at any time, if there's no $200 discount, use the Add Air coupon code for the checkout, and you'll get $100 off of the photogrammetry mastery course that I have. Again, there's a lot of information packed in there. But again, thank you, Cody, for having me on today and being able to speak with you for the last 45 minutes about drone tech.
Yeah, for sure. No, again, appreciate you taking the time to share your story a little bit and what you're working on. If anybody wants to just connect with you, right, and build that relationship or start to build that relationship with you in a capacity, whether that's you're an industry expert in some area and you want an interest in being on one of the courses potentially, or just connect with you from a drone pilot perspective, however you want to connect with Dylan, where can they best reach you? Is it LinkedIn? Is it email? Where else can we find
LinkedIn
you?
is the easiest for sure. I do get a lot of messages every single day. So do be patient with me getting back to you. But yeah, LinkedIn is the best place. That's where I try and post the most updates. You can also find me on Facebook. It's just Dylan Gorman. You'll just see a little icon of me catching a drone, just like my YouTube channel. But yeah, check out my YouTube stuff if you want to see any of the videos. Now that I kind of got past the development stage of redeveloping my course, I've got a lot of cool new videos coming out. I'm starting a brand new series called Drones Explained, where we talk about different functions of drones in different industries and their capabilities. So that's a really fun series that I'm putting together. Very, very technical stuff, but a lot of just free information that I'm going to be putting out there on YouTube here in the next few months.
Awesome. Well, we'll put all that information in the show notes so everybody can easily access that information to get connected with you, take advantage of the $100 off there, or the that coupon code as well, and all of your course information and YouTube and everything else. So, Dylan, it was a pleasure talking with you today and hearing more about your story, and can't wait to catch up again here sometime soon.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for being on.